while it's still legal. The Kate Daly Show starts now.
Okay, Mr. Neeson, whenever you're ready.
I see you when you're sleeping. I know when you're awake.
Okay, that's good. Let's try it again, maybe a little more jolly. Pick Santa.
I watch you when you're sleeping. Oh, yeah. I know when you're awake. I'm making a list and checking it twice. I'm going to find out who's naughty or nice.
Okay, I think maybe that's a little too intimidating.
Yeah, but if you don't mind me saying, I think it's right. You know, do you understand what Santa's saying here? He's making a list. Naughty, nice. He's detailed. He's single-minded. He's an eye in the sky bringing swift judgment.
Okay, but he's also bringing toys to children.
Not the naughty ones.
All right. Oh, man, do I love that clip. All right, welcome to the show. How are you today? Oh, man, we are almost halfway through December. That's weird, isn't it? Where'd this year go? I know I said that last year too, but where did this year go? I want to know. Woo! So much to say. So good old Liam Neeson, and starting off this show. So I have a lot to talk about. Then Susan joins me for a little bit. And let me just say, there was a huge article about earthquakes today. 2 earthquakes, what's next? And you know, we've talked about weather warfare coming, right? So there's that. Total crickets. Anyway, I don't mean to laugh because I feel like there's a lot coming in that way. Remember, I played the clip last week of Dan Pena talking about, an asteroid hits. An asteroid hits, throws everyone into chaos, and that's what's going to go down, according to the deep staters. That was kind of an interesting comment because is that part of weather warfare? In a way, I would imagine. Could be. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite you to call in. I want to play 4 clips for you, and I want to get your take. And of course, you can call in if you want to. I am happy to do that. 435-680-2503. 435-680-2503. On Monday, I have Rebecca Terrell. She's really cool. You're really going to like her. I had her on once before, and she's great. So on Monday's show, but I just, let me, I'm trying to think if there was anything else I needed to cover business wise before I launch into these clips. But I did find these all rather interesting. You remember, right, when I was talking about Elon, okay? And I was saying, look, none of his business experience makes any sense. He's never actually turned a profit. And so investors wouldn't have just been like trying to get to him to give them their money in the millions with no proven track record whatsoever. And the only proven track record was a CIA front company buying his 1990s little app about maps, okay, about mapping a community. And I know we're already doing this. They already had this technology. So I think he was propped up to own that company so that it could be sold for a particular amount, over 300 million, which he only got about 22 million of that. Most people don't realize that. And then he started this, his other ventures into banking and into SpaceX. So I'm not going to do that over again, but I just wanted to reference that for just a moment because I just wanted to talk about Jeff Bezos for a second because he's kind of interesting in this equation. So Jeff Bezos had started Amazon, and this clip is about this. So Jeff Bezos had started Amazon, and when he started Amazon, it was basically, I think, 94, 95, and he was on the cover of Time magazine for owning an online bookstore at a time, same thing as Elon, when no one was there really weren't a lot of people jumping online to buy things. It wasn't to that state yet where now we do a majority of our buying online, but back then it wasn't. So it was primarily a bookstore, and bookstores at that point weren't making gazillions of dollars. They were doing all right, Barnes and Noble and places like that, but they weren't. It was the brick and mortars that were doing okay, not online bookstores. And so he starts it in 94, 95. And then he's on the cover of Time in 99. And I'm like, for what? So let me play this clip for you, because the only reason he was asked to go on Jay Leno in this year was because of the Time cover. Now, Time is owned and always has been by the deep state. It's their propaganda machine. Okay, so let's hear this. Okay, because Jay Leno points something out that is pretty incredulous. Here we go.
It's the thing I don't understand. The company is worth billions. Yes. And every time I pick up the paper, each year it loses more money than it lost the year before. The company's never made a profit. That's right.
Here we go.
Billions. Yes. And every time I pick up the paper, each year it loses more money than it lost the year before. The company's never made a profit.
Yes.
That's right.
That's right. Yeah, I've never made a dime. I told my investors they wouldn't make any money. Probably going to lose it. And what's fascinating about Jeff Bezos in this clip, okay, is that basically the very earliest adoption of the internet was in 95. Okay. So, and honestly, I mean, I didn't even have a computer that was going on the internet until like 98. People really didn't even field out their web address, right? Big companies weren't even buying that yet. And so it's kind of interesting, this clip, because this clip is saying, Jeff Bezos, we want you on the Tonight Show and the cover of Time, without ever actually making a huge profit. Now, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, well, this is about valuation, and the rich take their stuff, and then what they do is they borrow against it, and they make it look like it's not owning, they don't really own anything, and they actually profit off of the debt, right? So, but I want to show you a track record, because the track record isn't what you think. And so everybody thinks that he was this uber successful guy because he's what? Time magazine cover, and he's on the cover of Time, and then also on Jay Leno. So the only thing that he did before, it wasn't ownership of a company. It was that he worked for D.E. Shaw and Company from 1990 to 1994. And it was a hedge fund. And then he pivoted into a book business online when people weren't even doing this. Yeah, okay. I believe that. It's kind of like the same thing with Elon in the hard pivot. The hard pivot was going from, I'm a tech guy and I do apps, to I'm in banking now. Online? No one's banking online. I know, but I'm banking online. And then I'm part of PayPal, but I'm not really part of PayPal because it was only a name only to give me some recognition, because PayPal went a completely different direction. So when they merged, Elon and PayPal with X, the bank, that really wasn't thriving or making a profit, it was just to substantiate him as one of the founders of PayPal. Same thing with Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos really didn't do much as even a senior vice president of D.E. Shaw and Company, a hedge fund company, didn't do hardly anything to show that he was going to be an amazing guy at owning a bookstore. Same reason Jeff Bezos was given the contracts by the intelligence community to own the Washington Post. He's not a newspaper guy. Now, even if you were thinking, well, it's an investment, right? Because it's money. Well, the Washington Post isn't making like hand over fist. It wouldn't be an investment a lot of people would get into, being a newspaper that by the time we were all online, Jeff Bezos owns Washington Post. I'm sorry, it doesn't even make sense, because everyone then online getting their news, it just doesn't make sense. So I'm just kind of pointing out some of these. He didn't have any significant prior business ownership whatsoever. There is nothing to say he would ever be successful. There was nothing to say that he could ever do what would substantiate him for a cover of Time. That's what I'm saying. The cover of Time is kind of like a nod to being part of the club. So go back, look at all your covers of Time, and you will see members of the club. It means they have pretty much sold out. They're going to be told what to do, heavily influenced, and they're trying to prop up the culture icons and the people you're supposed to believe in. And you can go all the way back to the beginning, because who owned Time magazine? Well, the Council on Foreign Relations. Okay. They were a huge arm of this propaganda machine in America, which leads me to my next clip, ladies and gentlemen. So this is Congressman Larry McDonald before his death. Okay. And obviously, and I know it's a little redundant. Yes, before his death. And he actually died 2 months after this clip was made, where he was sitting on mainstream media and to their face calling out the host of mainstream media. Here we go. And murdered 2 months later in an airplane crash that in an airplane incident, right, that they blamed on, of course, Russia, the bad guy. Russia's always the bad guy. 70 years of Russia being the bad guy. Okay, here we go. Here's Congressman Larry McDonald talking about the Council on Foreign Relations. Listen to his response when the media gets very upset at him point blank calling them out.
So that kind of silly, asinine statement is what makes people laugh. That's the John Birch effect. Well, Tom, I'm sure being a long-standing member of the Rockefeller apparatus, and as a member of the Council on Foreign Relations of longstanding, you're fully aware that there is an elitist core in this country that has seen value in subsidizing communism, of protecting communism. It has? Sure. You're accusing me of subsidizing communism? No, I'm saying because I happen to belong to there is an elite core. Study group? No, wait a minute. There is an elite core in this country that has dominated American society. Well, I'm not one of them. Trilateral Commission, Council on Foreign Relations. Well, let's face it, they've dominated the State Department for 40 years, and pretty much openly. Right, but what are they trying to do? Well, their objective is to try to bring about a gradual transition in our society, a dissolving of sovereignty, and a moving steadily to the left on the political scale.
Okay, I'm going to play it again. Here's the host.
Is what makes people laugh. That's the John Birch effect. Well, Tom, I'm sure being a long-standing member of the Rockefeller apparatus, and as a member of the Council on Foreign Relations of longstanding, you're
being a long-standing member of the Rockefeller apparatus and a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, he's calling out the host right to his face, saying you are part of the club, and the host is going to deny it. Here we go.
You're fully aware that there is an elitist core in this country that has seen value in subsidizing communism, of protecting communism. It has? Sure. You're accusing me of subsidizing communism? No, I'm saying because I happen to belong to there is an elite core. Study group? No, wait a minute. There is an elite core in this country that has dominated American society. Well, I'm not one of them. Trilateral Commission, Council on Foreign Relations. Well, let's face it, they've dominated the State Department for 40 years, and pretty much openly. Right, but what are they trying to do? Well, their objective is to try to bring about a gradual transition in our society, a dissolving of sovereignty, and a moving steadily to the left on the political scale.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so he's calling him out 2 months later. They blamed it on Russia. And of course, they blamed it on Russia. Why not? Because the deep state, when they're doing something to somebody, when they're taking somebody out in a position like that, and Larry McDonald would not back down from calling people out point blank, and calling out the system point blank, that they would blame it on Russia as sort of their kind of joke, as far as like trying to get the last laugh from murdering him. Because everything's blamed on the bad guy, right? The bad guy. And it's always going to be Russia because it's easy, even in the movies, always Russia. And I feel like, like the Brady Bunch, Marsha, it's like Russia, Russia, Russia all the time. So that clip is very interesting. And did you see how upset the guy got when he was accused of being part of the elite apparatus? Well, I do think, though, that there are a lot of people that do not understand what they're part of. And I think that they think that they're doing good. I think there's a lot of hosts out there that think they're okay. They go, I belong to these things that are, these Council on Foreign Relations type groups, and they're highly respected because of the fact that the media has always said they're highly respected, because people don't do homework in America, right? So we don't really know why they're there and what they're doing. And So I do think that the guy was actually probably the media guy, the host, being somewhat honest in his, I'm not part of that. You're accusing me of that, because I think when scripts are written and hosts follow those scripts, okay, I think that there's a certain part of that where they go, well, I'm just getting it right. I'm just telling the right story. Now, are they stupid? Could be. Do they have a sack of rocks for brains? Probably. Are they easily manipulated? I would say yes. Are they easily influenced? Oh, yeah. And do they love the carrot hanging of the career and the money? Yes. So there is all of that too. I'm not saying they're not without some sort of blame in this, because they're not either A, too intelligent to figure it out, or B, they know what they're doing and they're trying to hide it. A lot of hosts like that. They know that they're on the payroll, but they I don't know, somehow justify it. I don't know. And then there's those that, clearly love what they're doing and are pretty sadistic about it. But I would have to say that there are the hosts that are stupid enough to go along thinking that as long as they're getting money and as long as they're getting paid for what they're doing, for what they're saying, that they must be getting it right, because then the rest of media is colluding with them and saying, yes, you're getting it right. Yes, yes. It keeps saying that. That's right. And as they point people out and call them crazy, a little like Candace, like what they're doing to Candace or me or anyone that you see that's trying to tell the truth, then what they do is they build that case against them. And you've seen the tirades, I'm sure, online about Candace, or you've seen tirades about certain people that they want to deplatform. I get it. But it's so crazy to me how people haven't figured out that people are either idiotic, heavily influenced, heavily managed. It's just bizarre. Okay. You're going to see a lot of hosts on our conservative side of the aisle glowingly talk about AI, glowingly. Okay. I would be very, very, very leery of that. I really would. And it's a huge tell as far as what game they're playing and what they're about. They're either, again, just being influenced and they don't know it, which is going to be a rarity, because I would think that you'd be smart enough to understand when you're being influenced, or they're okay with it somehow, some way, because they think that they can do some good there, or whatever altruistic reason I'm trying to give them. But in the end, they are building the case for the elite, the deep state. So there's that. So you'll see glowing reports. I know Glenn Beck had the George Washington AI that was supposed to be like young and dressed hip on a show, talking to George Washington, the AI. When I'm talking about AI, I am not glowing about it. I am telling you what they are saying, because it's interesting that AI is built and programmed to tell you a lot of truth about what's actually happening, but it is diabolical at its core. This is why you have intelligence. That's what God created. And then you have artificial intelligence. The only thing Satan can pretty much create would be the artificial brand of what God creates. Okay. So you have AI. And I found, I think that there's a lot of people that do not understand how bad this is going to be. And they're part of the mechanisms of building it, or they're part of the machinery. They want to get on top of it. I understand, because you feel like, well, the future is AI. You better get on top of it so you can make a living for your family or whatever you want to do. But make no mistake, we are building this machinery. We are accepting it. And when I hear conservative hosts glowing about it, or sometimes warning about it, but glowing about it, there's something wrong there. So fundamentally, because if you can't see that and you're on the conservative side of actually doing any research, then, well, I guess people are more dense than I actually give them credit for, because I don't know how you couldn't see how this is so bad coming our way. So on that note, I'm going to give you another one. Let me give you another one. This was COVID the Code. And I don't know if you guys heard this. And did I play this on the show? I don't remember. So I'm going to play it for you anyway. I thought this was kind of interesting. As far as the whole thing being true, we can speculate, but it is kind of an interesting clip. Here you go.
There's no COVID. That doesn't stand for anything. That doesn't stand for a flu. It's a certificate C of O, vaccination B. ID, identification. 19 is A. 1 is A. I is 9. That's a code. Very primitive code, not even a good code. But so whatever they were dispensing was a technology to go into the blood. And when they start to release these frequencies, those things become activated. And the people become violent, the people become aggressive, people become crazy. And these are the realities. And the people whom were safe were people whom closed their eyes.
Interesting. Okay. So dispensing, meaning, I would imagine what he was meaning by that was dispensing in the shots. Okay. So whatever they were dispensing in the shots was having its field day in the blood is what he's saying. And he's saying it's a code, right? So I can't remember if I'd played that on the show before, but I thought it was interesting. And then combined with this clip from a scientist named Dennis Rancourt. Okay. And he's talking about the boosters specifically. Here we go.
We showed that as soon as a booster is rolled out to a particular age group, very rapidly within weeks, immediately there follows a peak in all-cause mortality. And we see this repeatedly in country after country. We have studied more than 100 countries now, and the vaccines are clearly temporally associated with peaks in all-cause mortality. And we're able to calculate the toxicity of that vaccine, and we find that the risk of dying per injection increases with age, and it increases exponentially with age, and your risk of dying per injection doubles every 4 or 5 years of age. We showed that as soon as a booster is rolled out to a particular age group, very rapidly within weeks, immediately there follows a peak in all-cause mortality. And we see this repeatedly in country after country. We have studied more than 100 countries now, and the vaccines are clearly temporally associated with peaks in all-cause mortality. And we're able to calculate the toxicity of that vaccine, and we find that the risk of dying per injection increases with age, and it increases exponentially with age, and your risk of dying per injection doubles every 4 or 5 years of age. We showed that as soon as a booster is rolled out.
So the reason I wanted to play this particular clip was because I saw something today that said they were going to now look at adults. Remember, they brought out the very most basic information, the most limited information they could on kids dying. Then they said, well, now we're going to take a look at adults. So I thought that was kind of interesting. That they're going to go take a look-see, like a little look-see, and they're going to tell you, not much to see here, because in the media, they lie, and they're good at it. So, they're going to do the same thing because that report about the kids, people took that verbatim. Oh yeah, see, they think only 10 died. That's it. Go away. I don't want to talk to you anymore. And they took it verbatim and think that that's the truth. It's not, clearly. There is evidence to show the mortality rate in conjunction with the boosters. And we said this from early on. We said that the shots that they were representing as the cure for Blovid back in 2020 would be the most dangerous shots you could get. And then after the shots were introduced, we said, don't do the boosters. The boosters are pretty bad. There was only a certain amount of recipes associated with them. And if you got the recipe, that's why they had the website called How's My Batch, or my batch of vaccines that I got in my area. And it showed, your batch that you got it from. So there's a lot there to unpack, but I just wanted to say, on the heels of you seeing in the press that they might take a little look-see at adults and the problems, if they do anything, they will obviously hide everything, because you're not going to be able to show that the government impeded people's health and caused death. You can't ever show that. So it's never going to come out right. But what do we do? Right. So there was somebody wanted me to talk about Tina Peters. I got a request. So she's not in a federal prison. She's in a Colorado state prison, and she is pretty ill from what I hear. And I had her on the show. She's a truth warrior. The byline about Tina Peters is that she was, what do they use in the press when the press lies about everything? That she was part of what she was doing was entangling herself, trying to get into the ballots, trying to get into to do something to the ballots. And no, she was actually exposing the fraud that was already there. So when she got into the system and realized that the software was the problem and that they were switching votes in the software, especially when they exchanged hands to the counters. So you had the software, which gives up the data, right, to the next level, which would be the ones that formulate the numbers, that votes were being switched. And she saw that. And I had her on my show. I had an exclusive interview with her. She was amazing. She is a truth warrior. They murdered her husband, put him into a care facility, and made sure he ended up dead pretty quickly. And her son is dead. And it was just, her story is so sad to me because she's such a warrior. She's such an amazing woman. And if you want to see somebody that tells the truth, that would be Tina Peters. Well, she's stuck away in a Colorado state prison. They're saying that she's been attacked over and over again. She is not in good health, and she's a cancer survivor. So she can't even get in to get a scan to see if the cancer is returned. And everyone is and on the Kate Daly Show page on Facebook, you'll be able to see a phone number, and it's the White House hotline that you can call into and demand something happen with this. But I think the reason that Trump has put out, to his credit, he has put out a few messages about it. He is saying, release her. This is diabolical that she's in prison. Could he do more? I'm not sure. I don't know. I never know whether things are plays for the media and plays for what something's going to look like in the theater of all things, or whether or not it's real. But I do know that she's sitting in a prison, and if it has to be in a federal prison in order for the president of the United States to be able to pardon, I think, pretty much. If I'm wrong, please call in. I know you will. So I know you will. But very, very much a reason that they can't get her out. And she did apply for an appeal, as far as the appeal is coming, and she wanted to be released during the appeal because her health is so bad in prison, and she was denied cause for that. So it's despicable, it's evil, it's sickening. She's a truth teller, and you could tell during my interview with her. All you have to do is Google SoundCloud Kate Daly Show Tina Peters, and the interview will come up and you'll be able to hear it. And she describes exactly what she found, and the minute she found it, they turned her into the villain. And then they tried to say that she was trying to get in to actually do the fraud in the ballots, and that's not at all what she was doing. She was exposing the fraud. There's a big difference. So, wow, pretty amazing stuff, actually. And, but that would be the reason, is that she's not in a federal prison. So, it's interesting because when they do these cases, remember Dr. Kirk Moore? So Dr. Kirk Moore was the one accused of giving people the vaccine passes, and not giving the actual shot in the doctor visit. Okay. Because he thought that, hey, this is supposed to be something that is, between doctor and patient. Well, they took that state case and turned it into a federal case so they could prosecute. So they get to pick and choose when they prosecute and when they don't. And what happens is I even said to Dr. Kirk Moore, I said, of Utah, I said, why is this a federal case? This is a state case. And he goes, exactly. No one asks that question. He said they turned it into a federal case because they wanted to. So this is why I say I don't know what's happening as far as Trump saying, release Tina Peters. Could he do more? Because I know they can turn things into federal cases if they want to. All they do is choose whether or not they want to. They wanted to go after Kirk Moore federally. That case was dropped, of course, but I just want you to know that because I think they get to pick and choose when they want to do something and when they don't. And sadly, so there's that. Now let's take a caller and then Susan's going to join me. Hi, caller. Go right ahead.
Yes, lots of important subjects you're bringing up here. You're right. President can only pardon on a federal case where the punishment came from a federal court.
Right.
This tactic they're using with the 10 dead, it's a common disinformation tactic. And what they're trying to communicate is we sincerely made a little mistake about the shots. And but there's 10 and we're exposing it. So you've got to continue to trust us in the future. We just slip up and trust the media, trust the medical establishment, trust the politicians, all in the line. So this is more important that we continue to be led by them. The vast majority of Republican conservatives that say they don't trust the media are trusting them nevertheless. They're still believing in what they're saying. Yeah. But I wanted to go to the first subject you brought up. First about the CFR. The CFR is very open. They're treasonous organization. They say American all nationhoods must be abolished. They support tyranny and Marxism everywhere you look. And when I was reading a lot of their works and articles, they're naming that we have to have one world government. This concept of nationalism is antiquated because we can't solve these big problems that face us. They're reciting the big problems were terrorism. So everything's a terrorist. Those both people are terrorists, so it's okay for we to murder them. And climate change was one of the other big ones.
Right.
Climate problems cross borders. Well, we have to have world government to solve them, regional government. But I wanted to also mention, one thing that I'm glad you gave that clip of Larry McDonald. He's one of my great champions.
Another hero.
Yeah, he was like Ron Paul, voting 100% of the time for the Constitution, 100%. But anyway, because that was a standard of how to vote. But he did say something. He was saying that that CFR interviewer was they're always supporting communism, is what he said, and that's true. It's really important to know that they pretend to be oppositional to communism. That's the wolf in sheep clothing when they're actually supporting it behind the scenes. The federal government, many corporations in America were keeping the Soviet Union afloat, aid and trade of all sorts and so forth. So they pretend to be oppositional. They lost the Korean War. The Korean War, just real quickly, 5.5 million people died. A lot of them civilians, and hardly anybody there wanted to fight it. The communist soldiers didn't want to fight. They're forced. They're slaves, and that war would have probably been under 1 million that died if we were allowed to use the atomic weapon. And that was what the MacArthur wanted to use. And he went to Truman, and Truman said, no, the Russians have the weapon too, and it'll get out of control. And he wasn't going to allow that. But who gave the atomic bomb to the Russians? The traitors in the federal government and the FDR administration. So a lot of people have died because we gave that bomb to them, not we, the traitors in our government. So I think that it's really important. 50 million people died under the Soviet Union between 1945 and 1975. So it's nothing to sneeze at. And he was right. Larry McDonald is. You guys are the ones who are protecting communism.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Two things that I would probably say to that before I bring Susan on is, number one, communism really they really should be saying globalism, because that's really what it's going to turn into. It's communism really on steroids as far as the global appeal, the global, we don't need borders, we just need a UN to kind of, like direct the path. And one of the things to come out of World War II was that horrifying, disgusting, evil UN organization, or the need for it, because they were supposed to be of peace. What a joke. We've had nothing but war since. And of course, we have the intelligence agencies driving the train. The other thing is the bomb. I have a lot of questions. I think that I think it's a fear game instead of an actual atomic bomb. I think that there's a lot hidden about that. I think that this is why it's been used for feardom for 70 years, because if you really think about it, any terrorist group that was a true terrorist group and not directed or funded by the CIA or its helpful partners called the Mossad, or the German one that no one ever talks about, or whatever, they're all conjoined at the hip. The problem is that I think an error in our thinking as people is that we can't understand why a terrorist group would have never gotten a hold of one and then done their business with an atomic bomb, right? So you figure that, and I know that's a very primary thing to say, it's a very basic thing to say, but look at the last 70 years and then look at how it's been utilized for fear. Every single time they need fear and they need to increase the removal of our liberty, what do? They go full bore into World War III speak and atomic bombs, right? And the bombs, and we're going to get nuked and everything else. And I think that it's a fear game. And the people that were looking at the sites in Hiroshima, the people that were down on the ground, the military going, this wasn't a nuke. This was just our regular stuff that we were doing all the time. That says, and why were all the people sent over here for medical care at the military hospitals? I mean, there's a lot of questions to ask about that. So whenever we're going to say, atomic bomb, I have to inject that I actually think it's been used for feardom in this country. And I think that there's a big wake-up call for us in how things are utilized against us, weaponized against us for the removal of liberty, more NSA spying. We have the TSA on steroids. We have all of these things happening to us for fear of something happening. And usually the fear isn't there, right? It's all a mirage. So the deep state feeds off of that fear and drives the train off of that fear. You guys do remember when for 10 years, all we ever heard was we were going to get nuked by North Korea. They finally had to take it out of the headlines, and Trump made peace with North Korea. The guy was pretty much owned and raised in Europe, by the way, but an owned asset. But the reason that we were never nuked by North Korea, not only would they have ever had the capability in general, they still, even if it was real, wouldn't have had the capability to come after America. We would have squashed them like a bug in two hard seconds. So that's what I'm talking about when I say the media has to play up fear. Otherwise, they don't have anything. So the fear is all they've got. How do I say that any more clear, right? But when you really start to look at the atomic bomb, the only one photo that we have of it being tested in New Mexico, only one picture, and it's very fuzzy. All the stories, the movies they make about it, how they parade it around. I have no doubt that the Manhattan Project was very busy doing sinister things, but I do have doubts that that this is a process by which they actually do have the power that they say they do. So I think it's used. I think it's used for feardom, and it's smoke and mirrors. Okay. Susan is with me. Susan, how are you?
Hi, Kate. I'm doing great. How about you?
Awesome. I'm doing great. So, okay. What do we have on the docket, Susan?
So I just wanted to add a little bit onto what you were saying,
Sure.
because turns out today, Australia has effectively banned all teenagers under the age of 16 from accessing the social apps.
Interesting.
And the irony of all of this is that Politico notes that Australia's e-safety commissioner in terms of enforcement, Julia Inman Grant, is an American tasked with policing the world's first social media account ban for teenagers. She acknowledges that it is, quote, the most novel, complex piece of legislation she has ever seen. She says, I've always referred to this as the first domino, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Well, they said all they did was pass the legislation, and now they're figuring out how to enforce it, which brings up digital ID.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, how are we going to do this exactly? Oh, we're going to have to use digital ID. And of course, people understand and know that there's something called VPNs, virtual private networks,
Mm-hmm.
which you can hide your online ID where you're using the internet from, and it'll scramble it to make it look like, oh, it's coming from Sweden, or oh, you're
Mm-hmm.
accessing this from. Well, they're saying, so therefore we're going to have to just use ID from around the world. We're going to have to use digital ID from everywhere. We're going to have to get everybody on board. We're going to have to be using AI. So
Mm-hmm.
effective today,
To save the children.
yes, yes, of course.
Wow. Yeah.
Effective today, all Australian social media users will need to prove their age on websites and apps, including Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram, Kik, Reddit, Threads, TikTok, Twitch, X, and YouTube. And if you're under 16 in Australia, you are banned. Now that is so insulting. In the US, of course, when you're 16, you can drive. When you're 15, you can drive in some states. And so the compliance, they left off the compliance. They said the legislation was actually passed very quickly within the last year. Passed quickly. And now there's some states that are jumping on this bandwagon. My state, home state of Utah, which is one of them, Texas, and Louisiana. And, the governor of Utah, very proud of this accomplishment of, in this case, it's getting
he's such a crap show. Oh my gosh. I can't.
app stores to enforce the age limit. That's what those states have said. But they're very pro locking down these apps.
Yeah.
And,
Interesting.
it's the wrong impulse. It's
for a reason. It's to grow the ID. They have to have reasons for the ID. By the way, just as a little segue, I don't want to segue too much or I'm going to look totally ADD right now, but when you mentioned Governor Cox, the scumbaggery of America comes to mind. Sorry. And he's just a horrifying governor of the state of Utah. He's very liberal. Got lots of secrets. Anyways, he actually just put out $50 million for the homeless camps that they're going to put people in, and they're going to make sure they stay in there from a medical point of view. So a loss of freedom for those individuals, and everyone's going to think that they're getting help. They're not getting help. They're just getting incarcerated, basically. And people are going to go, oh, it's so good, it'll get rid of a problem. But that problem hasn't really transcended into some major thing. And they're going to act like it did. They're going to come up with excuses, and then they're going to field this out, see the response of the people, make sure that we don't get too hyper about it, because if it's for medical, people accept it. So what they're going to do is keep people in there. And so the doctors never release people. They're in there against their will, because by the time they want to get out, they're not going to be allowed to. And what they're doing is setting a precedent for people like you and I later on. And so I know people are going to have a hard time with that. They're going to go, oh no, this is good. They're doing something about the homeless. What people need to ask is, why are they doing something about the homeless right now? What are they building right now for us in the future? Because they always do it for a reason, and it's not altruistic. I promise you that. It is not altruistic. So our governor is going to get away with this. Our propaganda news, the KSL and the propaganda news of our day in the state of Utah is propping this up as such a wonderful thing that he's doing because he's altruistic and so wonderful. And it's a total disgusting, evil lie. It is not. And people have services. They can get help, and they don't need to be incarcerated 24/7 into a camp for that help. So I just wanted to say that as a little segue, because you brought up Cox, and I just had to say that because I was just reviewing that again. So it was in the news again yesterday.
Oh no, there's always something
disgusting. Yeah.
Doing that has bad intentions. And he locked down the state of Utah, had no qualms about telling us it was going to be 2 weeks, and then just was happy
Oh,
to do it.
He went out with this thing that said, take the damn shot. I mean, it was like the worst propaganda you've ever seen. And he was the one that came up with the Elmo, Sesame Street. Color red means don't go anywhere. Color green means you get to leave your house. I mean, he treats us like we're two. I had him on the show back when I was a neocon. And let me just tell you, the guy is such a liar. I don't even know what to say about it. But on the heels of saying that, though, Salt Lake City just passed the 14% property tax. They added 14%. Now I can't remember. It was 14% and they actually approved it. And I'm telling you, property tax is going to go through the roof. They're going to lie about AI data centers for water consumption so that they can get your water bill high. They're going to outprice you of your home. That is next on the agenda. So make no means about it. This is happening right now and they're getting away with it successfully. Makes me sick.
Yes, absolutely.
Anyway.
And so, they sneak these things in and people's attention is fractured across the media. And so people don't hone in on what is actually happening. It's good that teenagers are actually fighting back against that ban in Australia. But these apps are how, people get the truth out about these things. Somebody was reminding us that, remember, on September 10th, that, while Charlie Kirk was getting shot, and the media worldwide was going crazy about that, as they should have, Congress slipped through the NDAA, and there was an authorization for an additional $800 million to Ukraine, and that came due today, December 10th. Leaders of both chambers of the U.S. Congress have agreed on the final text of the NDAA, includes $800 million in military assistance over the next 2 years. And it was the budget for the Department of Defense is $8 billion more than President Trump's $892.6 billion that he requested. And, the president is a big hawk, but the president does not believe in waste. He's like, I'm asking the soldiers, do they want this crap that you're forcing down their throats? And he'll tweet and say, no, the soldiers themselves don't want this. So why are we funding it? Well, we know why we're funding it. We're funding it because it's an industry that is dependent upon the taxpayer, and people get rich off these contracts. So the budget for the Department of Defense is now $8 billion more than even our own president has requested. And they're calling it the Peace Through Strength agenda, which codifies 15 of President Trump's executive orders. But, we're just shoveling money out the door to Ukraine as fast as we can. And both houses of Congress keep approving this. So it's going to be, it's going to require more frequent reporting from Ukraine. Isn't that sweet? That they're saying that, yes, we want more frequent reporting. So, it only works to favor the power brokers that you're kicking kids off of TikTok, not putting the parents in charge, kicking kids off. And they're saying parents approve of this. So
I wonder if Zelensky is going to sing pretty soon. I don't know. There's something. I wonder if the payments to him are about him because he's been owned since the beginning. I remember the vile emails we used to get when we said that in the very beginning, because everyone was turning their profile picture into Ukrainian flag, and I wanted to throw up because I thought there's no way in hell this is actually going on. But anyway, so an owned asset, right? He's part of a boy band and everything else. And we've done a lot of shows on him, but I sense that either something's going to happen to him soon and he'll deserve it, or something's going on there. He's either threatened to sing and they're shoving more money at him, or if he can't be controlled, but I think he's pretty controlled. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how they do away with this whole demise. The other question to ask ourselves, sorry, Susan, the other question to ask is this: why are we negotiating deals between Israel and Iran? And why are we negotiating deals between Russia and Ukraine? Why is the US the only one on the grand stage that can do any of this? Because when you start to peel back the layers of that question, you finally realize how much theater there is going on right now. And if you go and Google map Ukraine, you're going to not see what they've been trying to tell you that you're seeing. You won't see an entire country ravaged with war. You'll actually see a lot of reconstruction going on into a smart country, but you'll also that's where those funds are being used. But also you're going to see a lot of people going to work and going to the parks, and there truly over the last couple of years wasn't a whole lot of war action actually happening over there, that we were being lied to about that. So anyway, so something's going to happen to him. I don't know.
The money is flowing. I was surprised. They showed some film footage of him with walking with a Russian soldier surveying the troops. Not Russian.
It's good theater for sure.
But well, he is a foot shorter. He is I looked up his height. He's 5'6".
Oh yeah, he's a teeny little guy in a camo shirt.
He's supposed to be this dominant leader of Ukraine, right? This war fighter, and he's this short little.
He's an actor. Yeah.
So we know these people are propped up.
He was a talk show host, and his show was really and truly about him acting like a president, and then they made him the president, and I guess nobody even decided that they were going to look into it. I don't know. I mean, how stupid are we, right, on a scale of 1 to 10? But it's pretty amazing how they built this guy up. And he did say in 2020 on July the 4th, and I think you can still look this up on YouTube, on July the 4th, 2020, before his little war broke out with Russia, that he needed money to build his country into a smart country, to be then the example on the hill and to be a testing ground for the rest of the world. Interesting.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that testing for the rest of the world, somebody was pointing out that it was Australia that locked down the whole continent.
Yes.
And was so proud of how, and New Zealand as well.
Yeah.
So New Zealand and Australia are part of our Five Eye partners, right? And they like to test things there first. And so, the fact that they're trying to clamp down on the social media apps, I think the powers that be are surprised at the ferocity of what people have come up with on the social media apps, and the desire for accountability from our government has just really shocked and overwhelmed them. And so they call it hate. They try to make it illegal in certain places to criticize the government. But now they're going about this to shut down the 16-year-olds. And, the adults use very few of these apps. It's really the teens that popularize them and get the numbers up and get the views up.
The viral stuff.
The viral stuff going. And I did want to mention something that was super unusual. I follow an account on X called Data Republic. And she was the one that actually helped Elon Musk uncover a lot of the really nasty stuff about Doge, a lot of the corruption going on. But she has just pointed out that there's something called Network Contagion Research Institute, and it is out of Rutgers University, but they have pointed out something very strange. So there's a media personality, Nick Fuentes, who has gone on Tucker, and he's supposed to be a right-wing hater and a Nazi and anti-Jewish and all of that. And he spews some horrible stuff. And why is he so wildly popular, right? Well, it showed him a clip of him at J6 saying, tear down these barriers and, push past police, and like saying really outrageous stuff. Well, Elon Musk has come out and said he's a Fed. Well, this network contagion.
So
research,
is Elon.
Yeah,
not the pot calling the kettle black.
But I guess it's what part of the Fed you were connected to. But
lots of theater.
This Network Contagion Research Institute has said that his sudden rise over the past year was driven by synthetic amplification, foreign entanglement clusters, and coordinated raid behavior. And so there's this 23-page report that I've been going through, but it says his influence did not emerge entirely organically. It was manufactured unusually fast, unusually concentrated,
well-funded,
and unusually foreign engagement patterns. So you can see, so something really spiked my interest. So he would go on Tucker Carlson, and then he would say how horrible Tucker Carlson was behind the scenes and how horrible. And I'm like, And then he went on Candace, first he went on Candace, and she's like, we were so nice to him. And then he just spewed all this vile stuff about her. And I thought, okay, first of all, it's bad acting, right? It's like these bad actors who then try to pretend to be angry or try to pretend to be one way. And I thought, what is up with them? And then this report has come out. So you can see how foreign governments would also want to promote somebody like this, who is just like stirring up the and chaos.
I think the intelligence agency likes to say that it's foreign. I think that it's coming from the intelligence agencies that are really merged into a very vast, big military / regular CIA intelligence, like the Mossad, the Germans, all the groups. And so I think that they love to say foreign. I think they do that with a lot of things to make us think that so many people, and I love this line, are after us for our freedom. Like, BS. Oh, yeah. Anyway, such a crazy line. But I think the Nick Fuentes and even Tucker and even a lot of the people out there are, if you have an audience and you are funded, I would say that as a host, you would probably be influenced or compromised, or both, knowingly, unknowingly. Like I said before in the beginning of the program, sometimes hosts are really not very bright, and I've met them and I'm like, wow, you're not as smart as you put out there. And I'm thinking that it's the producers that fill them with everything that they talk about. And so they show up and they're basically the face. And I just think that it's at this point in time, it's one or the other. So when I was censored completely off of radio after 15 years, I knew, I mean, you know that this is going on. And all the time, 5 different times, I was promised by certain individuals who will remain nameless, who decided to, who were in charge of show placement, that I would be on a certain number of stations, okay? And it always fell through. It always fell through in the very, very end for whatever particular excuse they wanted to give me. And it was very interesting because people were calling their stations asking for my show and could not get it. And so I think that those stopgap measures are by people that are in the know, that are placed in the media. But this is why. So this is why I'm very much on the side of, could be wrong, but very much on the side of, if you have a substantial amount of listeners and you're out there today, there's a component of you, or you're either influenced, compromised, or both. Just saying.
No, it's
my experience.
Your experience was wild. Yes. Going through all that, and people, yes, the promises. Absolutely.
Oh, it was bad. Roller coaster.
So it's just good because most of us are not sophisticated at all on how this medium works, how the internet works, how listeners and viewers and followers, how all that works, because it's all new to us, right? But get this statistic. Data Republican was showing these graphs. The data show Fuentes receiving more early retweets than Elon Musk. So as soon as he would post something, he would get instant retweets. Despite Musk having nearly 100 times the audience, Fuentes was getting more retweets. In the first 30 minutes, Fuentes dominated velocity charts, an anomaly no legitimate account in U.S. politics resembles. Not Trump, not Elon Musk. So that's how you know there's this artificial component, right? It says, so he would be giving a podcast over the internet, and then he'd say, here, retweet this. And he would put a link in the chat and it would get velocity retweeted, like maximum retweets. It says 61% of all Fuentes's retweets in the first 30 minutes came from accounts that did not that did this repeatedly across
intelligence owned accounts.
It could be, or just automated to do this. It says 92% of those accounts, this is why your theory could be true, are fully anonymous. No name, no photo, no location, no contact info. And almost all of them are single purpose. So they're just to retweet his accounts. So it's really in a way of like hacking your own system to maximize this. So don't tell me about conspiracy. This is, and he could not possibly be doing this on his own. If you've ever listened to him, he's not super bright. He's not.
Sometimes they just aren't. Like I've met a lot of rocks for brains in the media industry and politicians. So the politicians aren't bright either. I've met so many that are. I almost like refer to them like golden retrievers. They like to get pats on the head. They like to. They're super friendly, and because you can't be unfriendly, or you wouldn't get anywhere. And they are like, like. Like I just want to be liked, and so they'll do whatever it takes to get the money, the career, and be liked. And so the only way I can refer to them is like a golden retriever. That's what they're not super bright, not your bright Siberian Husky, no, but like your basic golden retriever. It's kind of what they're like because I've met people in the media over and over again. So.
Absolutely. And, not to underestimate, because we live in the U.S. bubble, right? It's European influence or Australian influence. But for most Americans, we're just living in happy land here in the U.S. So Fuentes' most viral posts are heavily retweeted by foreign accounts, including India, Pakistan, Nigeria, Malaysia, and Indonesia. And these countries have zero organic link to Fuentes' U.S. commentary or identity. They're just doing it as part of engagement farms, and they're called iBulk retweets. They boost networks. They're inauthentic accounts, and you're like, wow, this is so. What's happened is high tech meets like really toxic political content that is destabilizing. And most of the people I follow are trying to stabilize the country around healthy family values and love your family more, engage with your neighborhood. But these are very, very toxic ideas that he has. He actively coordinates with other time these commands, like he'll say, retweet this, everybody retweet her. And then he's dropping these links. So he's like a media, I don't want to say terrorist, he's a media operative. He's really heavily engaged in making sure these things go around. But it's like he tries to get on Tucker and then will badmouth Tucker by millions of tweets. What is that about?
Well, they
get on and badmouth her.
Well, they all have a part to play. So when they own the argument and they also own the counter argument, then that means that they're doling out parts to play. And he's supposed to be the guy that gets everybody agitated because he says things that appear to be too far. And then you've got all kinds of media personalities. So that way there's always the drama though. So they're all owned. It's just a matter of what part they play and
what part the mainstream media is playing, because mainstream press mentions of him tripled after September 2025 and quoting him, calling him high status in articles rose by almost 60% after September, after Charlie Kirk's assassination, if there was a connection to that. But that was by the mainstream media. Mainstream. What are they doing? Why are they framing him this way?
There's two things I want to say at this point. Like, number one, the reason that appearances for me stopped and I was going on a lot of different types of news programs. It all stopped the second I started saying that it was all theater. And when I started asking the question, why is Trump running if he knows it's fixed? It doesn't make any sense. You would not run a race for the second time if the presidency was just stolen from you, right? And they put Biden in. So why in the hell is he running? Because it wouldn't make business sense on his part to even run again, knowing that they would not put you in. So that's why I started saying he was going in for sure, because he would never run the race to get in if he didn't know he was going in. So, so when I started saying it was all owned, it was all theater, that's when I started getting kind of stripped out of, where the train was headed. Okay. I was okay until that point. I do want to say something though about kind of like the counter argument as opposed to the argument, and do they own both? Because right now you'll notice that if I talk about health, okay, I'm stripped off of YouTube for 30 days. Okay. I'm in YouTube jail. If I don't prop up pharma, but if I do want to say something about Israel, I'm okay. Whereas 10 years ago, I would have been stripped off the air for talking about Israel. I was told to never talk about Israel if you want to keep your job in media in the very beginning. And I didn't know anything in the beginning. So I was like, oh, why? That's weird. But now people can say things. Okay. So now it's changed. So if I want to say all the things I've said in today's program, I'm not censored. But now you need to ask yourself why that is, because I would have been 10 years ago. So that's why I say the greater Zion plan, the things that are coming that paint the person in America as the crazy person who doesn't believe their government. It seems as though they're allowing those things to be said now. They're conducting both parts because they want things to be said. So if they want people to appear crazy, they want people to be looked at as mental, or, something's wrong with you. You're far right. You're one of those individuals, because I think they're truly allowing more conversations in that arena to be had, because it is something that is condoned right now for the direction we're going in. This is why I mentioned the homeless camps. Because right now they're trying to get consent of the people to take people's liberty away without any rights at all to do so, like without any kind of situation to do so, right? Just randomly go, you're homeless, we're taking you, out of the equation, and then we'll decide if you can go back into society, because there's propping up a situation where people could get the mental analysis of you're nuts, you don't believe the government, you believe all these crazy things, you're a Candace Owens type, you're an Alex type, you're this type, you're that type. We're going to put you away until we medically deem you okay. So I honestly think that they're allowing certain conversations to be had right now. They're allowing things. And whereas before I would have said somebody could get killed for saying XYZ, they're not going to do that now. They're going to actually allow people to say things. And so I just kind of wanted to bring that up, because I think it's something that that people aren't realizing that's happening right now. Because I noticed a shift this way. Like YouTube would have censored me for this show, but they're not going to, because I'm not mentioning health. I'm not saying naturally you can help with cancer by getting my ebook that has the answers at katetalks.myshopify.com. You can go there and get the answers so that you don't have to take pharma. Okay. So when I say things like that, and if I say certain words, stripped off the air for 30 days. Isn't that amazing, Susan?
It is incredible. It is incredible.
I know.
Which surprises me that accounts like Dr. Berg,
Mm-hmm.
like, he has 10 million YouTube followers,
Mm-hmm.
like some huge number is allowed to be on, because he is a Scientologist, if you look into his background,
Mm-hmm.
and he's all about natural healing and explaining how the body works. But he's got a huge YouTube following. And so I'm so surprised, but maybe there's a reason for that. I don't know. Like they know people looking for that, but you're right. You're right. There is
a shift in the wind.
Yes. Things that are allowed, things that are not allowed.
Yeah.
So I just, it's a puzzle. You look at the internet now, it is a puzzle, because you've been taught what certain things mean. And now you're learning from the people who've created some of the structure of the internet and some of the so-called psychological operations. If you go to the NATO website, it's like, cognitive warfare page for psychological operations. If you go and listen to the people who've created some of that, they're like, here's what this means. Here's the definition and why we do this. There's a whole psychology to the internet that if you're only reading it at face value,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be confused. You're going to think this is hate. You're going to think this part sounds crazy. You're going to say, look at these comments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had a couple, several conversations with AI. And I do want to say this about AI because you'll know that it's programmed by globalists. And of course, I know you know that because it's pretty obvious, but it's, and I'm speaking to all of you that are listening because it's so obvious, but, and I knew that by having this conversation with AI because I kept questioning AI's reasoning. And even had a conversation about Elon with AI. And it was funny how they kept backtracking. Every time I would call them on the nonsense, like they would actually say XYZ is true. And I would say, yeah, but that can't be because of this. And they would go, oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's not true. This is true. And it was so funny because humans can still analyze. We can still actually take pieces of information and analyze. AI is really not capable of that. They're only capable of spitting out what they're programmed to spit out. And most of it's going to be lies. A lot of it's going to be truth too, but a lot of it's going to be lies because they'll spin it and they're programmed to spin. But when you catch them on lies, AI does not quite know what to do with the reasoning aspect. So they will step on their own toes to try to figure out what to do next if you're really calling them out. Like if you're actually saying you're lying right now. It's pretty amazing. AI is just so destructive and it's so evil. That's why it's the counter to what God has given us in intelligence. Satan can only come up with AI, artificial intelligence. And I think it's funny that it's even called that because they're giving you the story right in front of your face. It's the opposite of intelligence, right? It's manufactured. So just so gross. Anyway.
Yes. It's manufactured.
Yeah.
It hallucinates.
Disgusting.
They told us that AI hallucinates. It'll just make up facts. I know somebody who is a sculptor, and he labeled his new sculpture after an ancient artifact. And if you ask AI about the ancient artifact, it says no. The ancient artifact was named after his sculpture. Like it gets it completely wrong. And you can't trust it. It will absolutely mislead you. And so there was just, I think I prefer something called DI, divine intelligence, that's been around for millennia and millions of years. Divine intelligence that'll, whisper truth to my soul.
Right.
So, I just think I don't know how the future is going to unfold if we think AI has answers. And I think they're worried. I think they see how misleading it can be, but how also informative it can be, how people can quickly look things up and then follow the breadcrumbs to find the truth, right? So I think that's incredibly powerful. And it's almost like Pandora's box. They've opened Pandora's box and now they've unleashed it.
Yes.
They can't stuff it back in, can they?
Yeah.
So I think it's, that they don't quite know what to do. They're back on their heels. They are frustrated and upset because especially kids are very smart at figuring things out. I was talking to somebody about a child I know who's 13 and she's the one who can figure out apps. She's the one who knows how to get from point A to point B or figure something out. If you're stuck as an adult, you hand her your phone, she knows what to do. And I thought, yeah, that's why they really don't want kids on the apps, not because, if they were really worried about child safety, they wouldn't put out the movies and trash from Hollywood that they put out. They wouldn't be promoting. Have you noticed now in recent movies, there's a number of movies that have smoking in them to make it look cool. I think of Dakota Johnson in one of her recent movie called The Materialist. Here she's just smoking away with no comment about smoking being negative. And you're like, what is Hollywood doing? Why would they be doing that if they were so concerned?
They're certainly ramping up the look emaciated look. Have you noticed? And they're not even saying one word about it. They're not saying how unhealthy people look. They just they're ignoring it. And so are they presenting a new piece of theater that is all about talking us into, looking the same way, looking emaciated? I don't know. It's kind of interesting what Hollywood's doing with all the things they're doing. So
they really do not seem to mind. They don't. They're not responsible. Plus, do they have the best values? Do they have our best interests at heart? Absolutely not. They showed that that used to be called heroin chic. Remember? Look.
Yeah.
In the Kate Moss days, and they then talked about, we've got to embrace body positivity, even if you're 400 or 500 pounds. Body positivity. They told us that was okay, but then when the Ozempic shots came around, what did they do? All those people promoting body positivity like Lizzo went for the shots, right? They all went. Amy Schumer lost a bunch of weight. I have to say, Maureen Callahan, who has a podcast called The Nerve, she really goes after these hypocritical celebrities who promote the worst lifestyles, the worst values that are toxic to the average person. Well, and then the media bumps them up like saviors.
Well, they're selling supplements, and they're selling things by saying that they're doing XYZ to lose the weight because it's a profitability, it's a money income, right? And so they're not going to say it's Ozempic most of the time. They're just going to say it's coming from certain sources, because I've done so much research on Hollywood, and this is going to sound super far out there, but I'm all right with that if your guys are all right with that. I actually think that it's such an illusion. The wealth is an illusion. I think these are commodities that are created, manufactured, and owned. I think that this is why they only buy each other's houses. It's why they once the Hollywood guy is out and not on the screen anymore, you'll see the wealth plummet, and the houses, the rich house is no longer there, those kinds of things. But I do think that it's money laundering. It's money laundering because there's also an aspect of this that people don't realize. And if you start to really look at Hollywood stars, the second they get uber big, okay, like your Clooney's and all your bigger stars, all of them have non or NGOs. They're supposed to be non-governmental entities, but they're honestly entities owned, I think, by the government. And I think there's a lot of money laundering that goes on because they can make them look charitable. Because I highly doubt that somebody like a narcissist, like an actor, is going to all of a sudden just put all his money into NGO in Africa. Okay. So everyone should probably be pretty suspect as to why they have all of these NGOs. So I think I think there's so much money laundering going on in Hollywood, and it's also there to create an illusion of wealth and importance and respect. And we tend to do that with people that have money. Just like Elon's an illusion, just like Jeff Bezos, they're all frontmen. I think all of Hollywood, I think the majority of it, minus maybe 10% that are probably pretty real. You have the 90% that are ultra fake. And I think that it's like their houses are funded. I think it's a paperwork shuffle. I think that I don't think they actually own the cars. I don't think they're actually getting the salaries that people say they do. And now me saying this is pretty controversial, I know. And a lot of people will just roll their eyes at that. I could care less. I've done so much research on this that I'm pretty much convinced that it's actually all an illusion. But there again, there's profit coming in from them doing, selling their goods and representing industries. And where is that money going? I don't think it's going to them. But I do think that using Ozempic or using these types of things and not declaring it and then saying it's coming from XYZ, I just think there's a lot of money trains that come into Hollywood that they're not going to stop. And a lot of it's about profitability. Crazy. I know it's going to sound crazy, right?
I've never heard that before.
Yeah, but, I know. It's going to sound nuts, but I absolutely think that these are propped up commodities, and they get to enjoy the wealth as they're speaking out for the club. This is why they all have the same agendas, the same political agendas. They're there to do fundraisers, and those fundraisers are paid for, not by them. And it's a great way to hide money. And so you have a family-owned industry that sets this culture standard in America for 100 years, that is completely owned. And then ask yourself this, Lookout Mountain. When they were doing Lookout Mountain and they were creating the films for Disney and they were creating these films for the war, okay? Why did they need to be hid away in a mountain? There was no reason for it. No one was coming to get us, and no one was going to really attack America. We already knew about Pearl Harbor, so nobody was actually really going before it happened. So no one was actually after America. But ask yourself why Lookout Mountain had to be hidden away in a hill. What was it actually doing? What was Lookout Mountain really for? And these are all kinds of things I've actually been researching, but very controversial, I know, because a lot of people are going to go, oh, that Kate, how could she say things like that? Hey, I fully expect it. This has been happening. They said the same thing to me when I said COVID was theater, so it's fine. But I think people need to take a harder look at the similarities in our actors and why they all speak for the club, have fundraisers for the club. They're there to promote. They're there to do all these things, and then all of a sudden, they're just broke as broke can be. Right? Once they leave Hollywood, I just don't think that's by accident.
It's a lot of money, a lot of power, and people want to control that.
Well, they set the standard for our culture, right? So they're the ones leading the charge, and they get us to do what the stars get us to do. It's a huge power structure in America, is our cultural, the ability to steer culture, not a product of it, but steer it. And they're certainly steering it, right? I don't know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so.
Even something like there's something called the Pantone Color of the Year, where Pantone it just says this is the color of the year, and I think the color of the year this year is Cloud Dancer. It's white paint, and I thought, and they said this is what makes the designers design with white. This is what makes somebody decides, and you're like, how can that be? That there's just this idea that comes from somewhere, and everybody has to jump on board, and now we all have to have white couches and white houses. That's crazy. It just seems so crazy.
You mentioned that, and it reminds me of something else that I saw, and it was, why is the color taken out of Christmas? And now it's monochromatic, right? And so everyone on Instagram, monochromatic Christmas, right? And all the color of the 70s, everything was colorful, colored lights, everything was color, and then gone. And now it's just beige, right? Cream. Everything is beige and cream. And it's bizarre how our culture just adapts and calls it modern. But those shifts take place. I don't even think we question the shifts, but we used to have a lot more color going on around Christmas. It's very weird.
We used to laugh because look back at pictures of our family kitchen, and we had these big flowers as part of the wallpaper, these huge, 10-inch flowers, and it was flower power,
right.
Into the 70s, and it was oranges and bright colors. You're right. Absolutely. But why are we so susceptible to that? The more they watch us, the more they observe us. So there was an interesting article that came out that the Gordian knot of governance, how transparency centralized power. So you know how there was all this demand for transparency in government, and we're going to be more. Well, government said, okay, we'll be more accountable. We'll trace every dollar, but that means we have to watch you using our dollars. And that's how they said, well, then we're just going to have to set up these systems, and then we're going to have to apply it to the people because you asked for transparency, and they watch us watching them. And now they're demanding that we be ultra transparent with the government and with industries. And wait a minute, this wasn't supposed to be what it was happening, right? But you can see how that system that supposedly we demanded, because it's trillions of dollars that they're sucking from our accounts. They're like, fine, you want it transparent, then we're going to have to watch you watching us. And everything, all of these things. It was the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, and it was a new era of government through data. And and the government is so full of it. They're such hypocrites. I went with a friend to the Social Security office about 5 years ago. Had to do something for her deceased husband and with his Social Security. And the woman looked at us and she goes, well, we have to order that information. I go, what do you mean order it? She goes, well, this is embarrassing, but that information is actually on floppy disks. And I looked at her and I'm like, you mean technology from the 70s that's 50 years old? She goes, yes. I go, we're just trying to get something to confirm his Social Security number. And he wasn't even alive then. And you keep it on. So they're hiding these secrets in government that they are so woefully, catastrophically. And that's why I do believe Elon a little bit, that he said, I went in and looked and was appalled, like at how horribly things were run. And I do believe that aspect.
I don't know.
That is so typical of government.
Yeah. I just don't think, I mean,
I'm not saying he's
Elon.
an honest, no. I'm not saying he is.
But just the way it's run is what you're saying. Yeah.
Yes. And, the government. And so, but it's just ironic that we think, oh, data transparency in government, this will be a great thing. And then it turns out they just turned and looked and said, well, by the way, we've got these systems where they're going to be up and running and we're going to apply them to you too. So it's almost like we didn't see that coming. We thought we'll just make them accountable. And they're like, no. We're going to turn it around and make you accountable. Us, the citizens and the consumers. So it's, the Pandora's box is opened and not control what is happening. We can only control how much we're willing to participate, but not all the way. They demand so much from us, right?
It's interesting. It's always the same club. I was watching a clip by Lara Logan. I've had Lara on the show and a couple of times. And she was interviewing this gentleman, and now his name is completely going to evade me, but he was talking about the inspector generals, the IGs, and he was saying how, Cigna is in charge of the deep state. David, was it Michael Horowitz? David Horowitz? I'm trying to think. I'll have to go back to that clip because I'm butchering it now. But I will say that they're trying to reduce the deep state into a couple of people that it's clearly much bigger than that. And it's not just that. And what they're trying to do out there is say that, you can dial down the deep so you can know exactly who is running things. They're part of the machinery, but they're not the whole machinery. And there's a lot of families with deep money in the backgrounds and all kinds of wealth in the background. It is not just Council on Foreign Relations. It is not just Cigna. It's not just certain individuals. It's a lot. It's like the Club of 300. There's so many people involved, but it's even deeper layers than that. You've got the soldiers of the 300, but then you have the people that are really calling the shots from beyond that. But it is crazy once you start to really look under the covers. This is why government can never do anything well, because it's not designed to. It is seriously not designed to do anything right. It's or effective. It's supposed to look like a crap show, actually, and both sides are in on it. So both sides are doing it, and it's going to sound very libertarian of me to say that, but it's the truth. And both sides are screwing us up pretty badly. And if we don't start seeing it and we don't start exposing it on a regular basis, like Elon, I don't think Elon was ever behind Doge. I don't think he was ever doing anything. He was never sitting behind a computer. Are you kidding? He was the face of Doge, and Doge was never going to do what they said it was going to do. And I don't care if you're the biggest MAGA fan ever. It was never designed to. It was a distraction, and it was a feel-good measure. And it was, see, we can't do what we're going to do because of those guys, or whatever excuse they came up with. And it just sort of died, and the media is not even talking about it, and Congress isn't even talking about it. It's ridiculous. It's kind of like what you mentioned with the Charlie Kirk thing. All of a sudden you have this going through, and you have the old, distraction coming from Charlie Kirk, and no one's looking at what's actually being passed. And so they can come up with as many excuses as they want, but it's always a good excuse. And they always blame the other side. And it's built like that so that they always have cover for all the stuff they're doing. It doesn't matter which side we're talking about, right?
Really true.
It's insane.
With two parties, they always blame the other side and say it's us. it's interesting because you have Thomas Massey out there
Mhm.
who doesn't play ball, but is also on team the governor of Florida, DeSantis. He's
Mhm.
on Team DeSantis, so he's a natural, adversary to Trump. But he's also speaks truth about this. Like, hey, Rand Paul, same thing. Rand Paul was the one who said this is not America first to give an additional $800 million to Ukraine at this end of at this stage of the game, especially when they're not cooperating the way we want them to cooperate. So it really is. And power, this article points out that power then consolidates itself. Instead of everything becoming transparent, everything becomes consolidated, and you have to go through these central authorities to get things done and for things to happen. And so, they've now admitted, I know Mike Lee was trying to get rid of TSA, went through TSA the other day, and I thought, I cannot believe my underwear is still having to go through an x-ray machine. And
the shoe bomber. I mean, I'm just like the shoes. Yeah.
Yes.
What a
We're
joke.
not having to take off our shoes. And I think that's a concession. I think people were getting so upset with TSA. They're like, fine, don't make them take off their shoes just to make them happy.
Well, they had to make it look like we were winning a little bit.
Yes.
But never taking away the whole banana, just winning a little.
No, but I had somebody a few months ago confront me about I didn't have anything over 4 ounces. She goes, but you have too many bottles. I go, when was there ever a number of bottles you can have?
Are you serious? Oh my gosh.
But she looked old. She looked tired.
Yeah.
And I thought, this job has just destroyed your personality.
Oh, there's a lot of willing soldiers out there.
There are a
willing
lot,
soldiers.
and they're foot soldiers.
Yes.
And I just thought that's tragic.
And no one ever says, well, how many things happened because somebody had more than 4 ounces of liquid? Where's the sheet that says, that this was happening, and we believe the lies so well that we don't eat, because people want to fly. So same reason they got the shots to fly. Some reason they wore the mask, same thing. The only time I ever wore a mask was to walk onto an airplane, and then I took it off the whole time. But that was the only time I ever wore a mask. That 15 minutes, 10 minutes walking on. So I could get on, see my grandkids. Yeah.
Yeah. And if they made it for food, people would line up to do almost anything. We've seen it. Now we know who the people are who are the hyper compliant people, willing to turn your neighbors into the Nazis, essentially.
Yeah, that's true.
But this was, it reinforced in my mind, like, what have we allowed ourselves to comply with? I just looked at her and her eyes were hollow, and I thought, she's been enforcing this mandate that's been essentially meaningless.
Oh, no one asks.
That's your goal. That's your purpose, your grand purpose in life. And I just thought, oh, that is so tragic.
Nobody ever says, does this make sense? Nobody ever says, I mean, not nobody. I know all you guys do, but pretty much the consensus is out there is like, don't ask just don't even ask if it makes sense. I mean, all the things I bring up on the show, Elon's history, Jeff Bezos' history, their frontmen and Bill Gates and all the stuff in Hollywood. We just don't ask enough questions. We're not curious enough anymore. Is it in the water? I don't know, but we're not curious. Let's take a quick phone call. Hi, caller. Welcome to the show. Go right ahead.
Hey there.
Hi.
Just quick comment on the issue of airport security and this whole TSA BS that exists. You want an example of airport security? Just fly through Ben Gurion Airport.
Which one? Wait,
Ben Gurion.
Israel.
Oh, Israel.
In Israel. Now they do security the right way. You don't have to take off your shoes, but it is amazing what they do.
Interesting. Okay. All right.
Oh my God. So all the complaining about what's happening over there right now, they know how to do airport security right.
Well, certainly. I actually would want to go over there. I want to see the Middle East. I really haven't been there. So that'll be interesting to view for sure. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Appreciate you. I don't doubt that there are countries that aren't acting like we're about to have a shoe bomber on board of the airplane we're about to board. But,
I think from what I understand, I haven't been through Israel security either, but that it is hyper vigilant. They're very intensive about doing it because they have had their buses blown up and things happen.
Yeah.
But it's not typically coming from abroad, but I guess they feel like you have to at least be, on guard. And I wanted to change subjects for a moment if I could.
Yeah, a few minutes left. Sure, go for
it. So there was a very unusual, when we're talking about the internet and how strange things have gotten, there is a podcaster, and I'm not going to mention his name. He went on a rant about Candace Owens and ranting about her, Tim, but saying she's only got one guy for security. Now her husband is the son of a lord in Parliament in the UK. I mean, that she's got one guy for security and she only has, describing her security setup and how minimal it is, and he kept repeating it and repeating it and repeating it. And somebody did an analysis about that and said this is estochic terrorism, meaning you are priming people. This person has millions of listeners. You're priming for somebody else to go and do something to her because there's a certain percentage, if you've got millions of listeners who are unstable enough that they'll take the hint.
Yeah, I mean, setting up more theaters. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I would think so. The setup.
And so, but to hear him do it repeatedly, you're like, what is this? This sounds really weird. And then there was something important that he did is he called her the C word, which is very vile to call. He kept calling her that over and over and over. And now he's a professional. He's been doing this a long time, being paid to be a podcaster. I don't know who his funders are, but he kept saying, talking about her security, her house, her lack of walls, her one guard, her neighborhood. And then, and not the things that he was actually disagreeing with her on. So if this is not what we in America consider legitimate discourse. It's not illegal. But it's not what we consider legitimate discourse.
I think, I think there's a lot of mileage they're getting off of the counter argument about Candace. And people have asked me, what do I think about Candace? And it's, I would imagine, if I go by my own rules, and I've said this before in the show, that anyone with a large audience like that, okay, so they either deplatform you or they Breitbart you, heart attack in your room, or they, like what they did to Dr. Buttar, okay, caused a heart attack there. They silence you in numerous ways. Sometimes they do it on a big stage. And it doesn't always mean that you're not part of the club, though. It means that you could very well be part of the club if you start to say things that they don't love. What I'm saying is they'll get their mileage out of you. And Candace and Charlie were very much a part of the club, or they would not have been in the situation with Turning Point that was extremely well funded by the billionaire class. And so I think they were part of the club, and whether she is turning away from that or not, they're obviously trying to ratchet up the discourse on her, keep eyeballs on this, right? So then you have to say, well, what else are they doing while they're doing this? The other thing is usually it's proof in the pudding as far as what happens to somebody too, because it doesn't always tell the tale, but it is certainly interesting how people are deplatformed or censored, like in my case, or in that case, like with Charlie Kirk, right? They removed him from the stage, right? So they use him in a myriad of ways, hoist him up for altar worship, okay, because that's really what they did, and then use this to then take Turning Point in different directions if he was opposed to it, or he just was playing his part and they took him out. So there's lots of different ways this could go, and lots of different, I think, reasoning behind what they do. It's kind of like what I said before, when we're allowed to have conversations now that we weren't, as long as it's not against pharma. So with that knowledge, it's just sort of interesting, because I think that owning the argument and the counter argument can be so sneaky, can be so difficult to see. that's why I'm saying I'm not quite sure on her, because it has to play out a little bit more to be sure. But I will say that my hunch would be that it's being used for the club, because she is either was the club or still part of the club, and they're utilizing it as a distraction, making it look very real, that there's all of this like heated discourse around the things that she's trying to say. Also, could it be the ratcheting up of, it went from you're an Alex type to you're a Candace type, right? Because you're going to classify somebody that says, wait a minute, I don't believe what happened to Charlie Kirk was that shooter guy. And so I believe Candace. And so really kind of ratcheting up the, this section of America is crazy.
To
You
make
know what
it
I mean?
a bipolar, yes, so that you're on that team.
Yeah.
If you say, I have questions about what happened that day, why they didn't have an ambulance there, why they requested a permit for 200 people when it was 3,000. Why was it? Lots and lots of questions.
The security was new.
Yes, if you have any questions, now you're on Team Candace, and that's what they want to box you into. I mispronounced it. It's called stochastic intimidation, and it's a way to call up a mob and create intimidation without directly saying, go get her. But essentially that's what that player is saying. Whether or not it's coordinated, I mean, she is a mother of 4. It's hard to imagine that she would be playing a role.
Is she saying that it's all fake? Is she out there saying the entire thing is fake? The office of the presidency is all theater now, has been for a very long time, and elections aren't real. And elections aren't real.
She has said, that they're dissing her, saying, we're going to lose the midterms because we're so disjointed. And she says, we don't care about your midterms. We don't care. This is all
it doesn't matter on the midterms. It's all the same. Yeah. Same outcome.
So for her to say, this is all fixed, it's all rigged, it doesn't matter if this is the result when we're in power. You realize she's kind of not repeating the narrative that the big book would have her repeat.
Well, and that is the altar on which the deep state kind of hangs its hat, is to make sure that we stay involved in the right versus left. So thinking that one side is all the problem and not the other side. And then also they have to keep us at odds. So when anyone shines a light on that and they say, but look at the last even 50 years, the way we've gone has always been one direction though. As the result, like the wall, the Obamacare, we don't get rid of anything. So if somebody is speaking about that, because I noticed that in my own life, if you're speaking about that, then removal. But so it's going to be kind of interesting over the next 6 months to watch this play out with her. Yeah.
Because when she said that, and we don't care, we want to get to the truth of what happened to him, we don't care about your stupid midterms. I thought, that's what they deeply care about. That's where the money.
They want us to care about it. Yeah.
They want us to care about it deeply. And that's Tim Pool's message is we have to care about this primarily the midterms and political power. And she's like, I do not care at all. You can she says, I used to care. I used to think it was important. And she goes, I don't anymore. And when I heard her say that, I thought, oh man, that's a lot of people arrayed against her.
Yeah.
She goes, people say to me, don't you want to be invited to Mar-a-Lago? She goes, nope, not anymore. And I thought, oh, okay. All different.
The one thing I do know is that they're very, very crafty at putting on this theater play. So they're very, very good. And so I always keep that in the back of my mind, because am I suspicious of everybody? No. Am I suspicious of certain people? Yes. And there's a lot of show hosts out there that I think are a total con job, and they'll tell you the truth, but then you'll get misdirection, and you'll notice that they have to keep up the illusion of the right and left, and they have to keep up the illusion that the courts are real, and there's certain courts that aren't. There are courts that are real, but there are certain things that take place in fake courts, intelligence, CIA courts, and those things are not real. And so if you shine a light on any of that, you're out of the club. So they'll either get rid of you or just silence you or just make you look insane. So it'll be interesting to see, but I'm always in the back of my mind going, they're very, very good at this game. They're very good, and they're very good at the psychological aspect. There was a big article the other day, and I think was it last week? It was probably last week. And it was talking about how Game On, because of the psychology units down, I think it's South Carolina, with the Army, that where they train a lot of people to go into the public and look like they're just regular citizens, and they're not. And this intelligence group that has permeated the landscape of America to make it look like they're just citizens, but they're really spying and keeping eyes on people and reporting and all of the same, and how vast it is. And we don't realize it as a public, how many people are involved in that game. So there's some interesting there, and they're seriously announcing it. It's like, yeah, game on. I mean, you're screwed, people, because we have all these eyes and ears out there, and there is no privacy anymore. So that's kind of interesting. I just thought, yeah, there are lots of psychological games going on, and I've seen people actually firsthand that have come out of the South Carolina, some of the bases there of their psychological operation conditioning and training that permeate the political landscape as regular Joes just running for office, but they're anything but. So, there's just a lot of trickery going on, and you kind of have to keep that in the back of your mind.
Well, and when you see somebody getting ousted from Congress, when Congress turns on their own, you know that they have breached the brotherhood, so to speak, and they have, gone against the agreements that they all have among them. Chase Hughes was talking about the fact and showed that the highest percentage of psychopaths in the population is in Washington, D.C. And that didn't surprise me at all. And people, it's like, who can hang in there the longest? You look at a Nancy Pelosi, you look at a Chuck Schumer, and even now, psychopathy has certain traits. Even a Donald Trump, what allows him to be able to tolerate the absolute hostility and the gamesmanship that you have to play in order to stay alive in that scenario. You have to have nerves of steel, and you can't really care what people think. So it did not surprise me at all. And he speculated, why is it that cities almost breeds psychopaths? And he said it really is our distance from nature, that the more we are separate from the natural consequences of nature, which does loop back to our original topic, which is children and iPhones, children and phones that give them access to the virtual world. This distancing from nature and how that is ultimately, turning back to people, turning back to nature can get us more grounded in reality, so that what is the point of having more power, right? Why do they crave it so much that any price they have to pay, including doing unspeakable things, like some of these women we see in governments around the world, in these countries, who just they do not seem like the mothering type, do they? Angela Merkel, who I know now is out of power, but New Zealand's former prime minister, just gosh.
I mean, I'm looking at these people like the North Korea leader, who was clearly raised in Europe, who was an asset, and most of them assets. And it reminds me of this particular clip. Here we go. Born for the position. Yeah, central casting. It's mentioned a lot. That's all I'm going to. Central casting mentioned all the time. I think it's right in front of our face, how these people are picked and how they're groomed. And like he said, born for the job. Yeah, I would imagine there's a lot of people that are manufactured and created and born for the job. Sure.
Yeah. And that's why Zelensky came off of a program where he pretending to be president to actually be president, and run by the same oligarch who owned the TV show. You're like, okay, this is how it is. But you're right that Kim Jong-un went to Swiss boarding school, was raised among Europeans, and we treat him like he's a barbarian.
Yeah,
Well, no.
many of them land in the Klaus Schwab School of Treachery and disgusting evil. And so, yeah, we have a lot of them. And that's why it just shocks me. And, going back to Time Magazine as one of the major propaganda magazines built from birth by Council of Foreign Relations to give you culture and to show you who's on top and to sell you a marketing plan for what the culture will regard as respected. And what is your? I have a pick, actually. I have a very controversial pick for Time Magazine's cover for Person of the Year. This is actually being bet on right now, okay, on certain websites. It's kind of interesting. It's either going to be AI, or they're going to pull a completely different move and put someone like Erica Kirk on there. And if they do Erica Kirk on there, just know that that's part of the game. That's part of what they're doing is then announcing the direction that America is taking. And I think you could go home and realize that the taking out of Charlie Kirk was for a definite reason, and was not the kid on the building that is from my city. It is completely a CIA op. What's your take? Who do you think graces the cover of Person of the Year for Time Magazine? Because when we started the show today, I said Jeff Bezos was the Person of the Year, and he didn't even turn a profit and had never been a success in his life, and they had him on the cover of Time. It's the only reason Amazon took off was because they used their propaganda arm to prop him up. So who do you think? Or it's going to be AI? What do you think?
I think maybe it's Prince Harry. Like the most ridiculous and just an absurdity. Yes. If it's not Erica Kirk, if it's Erica Kirk, you're right. Then it's an unfolding of a plan, right?
If it has anything to do with the Kirks, it's going to be, I think that's going to be obvious that it was part of the plan, that it was done by intelligence for sure. There shouldn't leave any doubt at that point, but it could be AI. They're really trying to hoist AI up, so it could be AI as the Person of the Year. They've done things like that before.
Well, there's an actress who is an AI actress, and it said there articles. Oh, Hollywood is terrified of this. It's like Tracy Norwood, but it's an AI actress. But there was another article that came out by a real actress who looked just like this actress, and she goes, "How am I going to get roles if they're going to use an AI model?" And I thought, oh, well, they're not really promoting her very much. They're talking about this AI actress. They're still talking about the AI actress.
I think there's more AI in Hollywood than we realize, for sure.
Oh, yeah. Especially 80 actors who
a lot of fakery.
Want to be relevant.
Yeah. Let's put it this way. Oh yeah, Mr. Beale. LB says Mr. Beale from the Movie Network for sure. Let's put it this way. It's one of the only differences between me and between other people as we're discussing all these things today. And I probably said a lot of things you don't either agree with out there listening, or you're like, that Kate, how can she say such crazy things? The only difference is going to be how to the depth of what evil I think is happening. So that's really going to be the only difference. That and the level of research somebody's looking at, okay, where you're doing your research. So that's going to be really the only difference. And I actually think we underestimate Satan to such a degree as the main person behind the people that are his foot soldiers that do these terrible things and have evaded government for so long, since the dawn of time, but for so long, that I think that it's just really the level of the depth of what you think Satan is capable of. I think it really comes down to that. And I think this is a spiritual war happening to us. And you're either going to, most people underestimate him. I think that it's not about temptation. It's more about deceit. And I think that we need to be very aware of how much deceit is actually going on in our world right now. And when I hear the word central casting, and I know that these magazines have been co-op since birth, Time Magazine is one of them, Henry Luce, go look him up, then I know that the propaganda machine is on, and that we are living in a time that is it's tough time, because we're up against the brainwashing of brainwashing of brainwashing. And we're going to have to see through it. And we're going to have to actually task ourselves with critical thinking skills that allow us to see through the mirage of what we view, and in our culture, what we respect. Right?
Oh, absolutely.
So,
because different cultures have not only different values, but different words for things that make them see things completely differently.
Yep.
We assume that what we're thinking and the words we're using represent reality, and it's not true.
Yeah.
We're just seeing a version of reality that we have been groomed and trained to see. And once you start recognizing that, it kind of freaks you out, because you're like, well, what am I missing? What are my blind spots?
It's so true. It's like take your eyeballs and emotion out of the Charlie Kirk situation. I interviewed Charlie. It was a fun interview, actually. He said it was one of the most fun times he's ever had in an interview. So we had a great time, and it was good, and it was good to meet him. Okay. At the same time, I have to take my emotion out of all of this in order to read it right. Okay. In order to see it. And sometimes it becomes about, are you going to trash Erica Kirk because she's a victim? How dare you? Or it becomes about like this war of emotion about Charlie and the war of emotion over Erica. And every time she's dabbing her eyes, is she actually crying or not? And why the constant eye dabbing? And there's all kinds of conversations that gear toward the emotional aspect. Take your emotion out of it and try to see it through a lens of theater. Just try, because sometimes it is, not all the time, but most of the time it is. And if you can actually look at the situation, and it makes more sense with the backdrop of theater than it does with the reality that's happening, then you realize, and there's something in us that goes, that's truth. Like, I know what I'm seeing, and you can't unsee it at that point. So I ask you to like get your emotion out of it, stop making it for or against Charlie Kirk, for or against Erica, for or against Trump, for or against Marjorie, for or against anybody. And just look at if this was theater, and just do this exercise. If this was theater, wouldn't this make a great play if they were scripting the parts and it was coming out the way that the way that something happens? And I assure you, you'll probably start to kind of peek under the covers a little bit and see it in a totally different light.
I absolutely think that is a very powerful thing to do, because you don't know.
I know.
We're thinking in terms of probabilities that we don't know.
Yep.
And so to be able to see it both ways and not
right. We are so tribal. We are made to. If you're tribal, you are defending without thinking, or you are convicting without thinking. So if you're tribal, think about that. The sides are built to defend or convict, defend or annihilate, defend or persecute. But if you're taking yourself out of the tribes and just thinking critically, as if this was theater, what would this look like? If you were the deep state, what would you do? What would you try to show the people? What would you do if you needed control of the people? Then I think you're finally capable of seeing through it. I don't know. There's just, we got to get ourselves out of the I am jumping to defend, how dare they, or I'm jumping to jump in and persecute because you've been told to, right? On the left, you've been told to persecute this person, or you've been told to only defend this person. And neither one of those sides ever thinks about what they're doing, because they're so busy fulfilling the role of the tribe.
They are. And yes, unknowingly. And, people often ask, how did the British Empire conquer and maintain power for so long? A lot of it was through this pomp and circumstance called prestige.
Yeah,
it creates a fake influence, and they used it for the purposes of power, and we are so susceptible to that.
Yes, amen. Amen. Yeah, it's we're we're so brainwashed. We don't even realize how brainwashed. I don't even realize really to the extent of how brainwashed I truly am. Seriously, I think most everybody is. I don't know that too many people are seeing the theater for the theater. And I'm not even, I don't think, seeing it. If I had to call myself out, there are truly things where I stop in my tracks and I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think of that. Like, oh my gosh, yes. Oh my gosh, questions that come up where I'm like, wow, why didn't I think of that 5 years ago? That kind of thing. So yeah, there's a lot to be learned, and I'm learning every day, and trying to bring that to the air for all of you, because I think that it's important, and I think truth's important, and I'll never not think that. I just it's in my soul. I have to do this. So I so appreciate you. Thanks, Susan. Appreciate you. Great conversation today. We covered a lot of ground today. Holy cow. Really appreciate you. And of course, be faithful, be fearless. And well, let's put it this way. I will be back on Monday with Rebecca Terrell. And Rebecca is she's incredible. She's been on the show before. She has a lot to say, and she really, there's a lot that she sees, and it's very, very interesting. So Rebecca on Monday, and I'll be here most of the week on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday next week. And I really appreciate you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Go to katedalleyradio.com. Go get some Cardio Miracle, because it's amazing. See, it's amazing. I drink it every day. And of course, I'm not back tomorrow. And let's see what else. I'm trying to think. Also, get to the website, because there's amazing gifts for family members on the website where you can support the show at the same time as you're supporting Christmas gifts. My Pillow has some amazing things going on right now, some deals that you can't beat anywhere, and it supports the show. And just put in the code word Kate. Also, remineralize your teeth. They also have mineral deodorant. They also have children's mineral toothpaste. It has that ingredient that fills the minerals in your teeth. That mineral's missing when you have a cavity. So there's all kinds of wonderful things. Just go to katedalleyradio.com and you'll find them. And get Cardio Miracle for sure, though, because I know you're gonna get through this winter really well. And I love Cardio Miracle. It's truly changed my life health-wise, so I highly recommend it. And you'll even sleep better. It's great. And of course, be faithful, be fearless. And I'll see you on Monday.